This is Elisa. I'm with Average Advocate. My job is to empower everyday, ordinary, busy, overwhelmed people to figure out who they are and how to make a difference in the world that they live in. I'm trying right now to do Instagram stories a little bit more because I've been told that that actually helps you guys when I talk about the things that I know and kind of pass them on to you this way. So I'm trying. I'm a little nervous because this isn't really my jam, but someday it will be. Anyways, the point is that today recently I've been kind of doing a few things on Average Advocate. We always got blackout trafficking going on. We always have things going on when it comes to like leadership and in kind of understanding our role as influencers, whether it's with your kids or whether it's with, a ministry or a group or even if it's a small group type of thing that you lead. And it's those type of things or nonprofit. And also it's just kind of figuring out your path and your calling and where you fit or what direction to move in next and kind of coaching you through those steps. And then how to move from all of that and like being balanced and intentional in your life and getting from there to actually making a difference in the world when it comes to these huge social issues. So a lot of times I'm covering a lot of different things. And I know that sometimes that connection might not seem clear to people. But, in my mind it's clear. But I'm also told that I have a lot of stuff going on in my mind and it's hard for me to communicate that. So what I decided to do this week is to kind of do some leadership hacks with you of ways that I've learned how to be a better communicator. Still not the greatest communicator, but I'm working on it. And one of them is this one right here. It's called Vowels and Consonants. I don't know if this is backwards for you because when I look at this, it's backwards. But anyways, this is like the basics. And one of the reasons why I use this as a tool is because sometimes when we get like really overwhelmed or especially when I've worked with people who are, maybe coming out of trauma or something where they feel like their voice has been silenced. And that's what I talked about in the Instagram post today is feeling like you're silenced. Or maybe you never really started speaking anyways, even though you have a voice, but you're not sure how to use it for social issues because only that's for activists and they're crazy. Or maybe you just don't even know how to communicate with the ones that you love well. So this is a thing that I always come back to is just the basic simple of like what letters are making up your words, or in the case of how you actually practically implement this is really thinking through what are the basics that I'm trying to communicate. And lots of times this comes down to like really being self-aware and being like, okay, so I actually am in pain. Maybe the vowel for me would be to express that, like the basic elements of who I am that I need to express right now is that I have a pain level of a 7. And maybe that is affecting me right now, which is why it's affecting our relationship right now. So it's kind of just a little cue that I will say to people to be like, okay, I need to get back to the basics. What am I feeling right now? What do I need to express? What is the very, 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 very like basic of the basics that I need to communicate? Especially with kids, when you're raising kids, I find this to be like so useful because a lot of times kids have a really hard time knowing how to express the basics. But if they're learning how to read, you can kind of use this to kind of like cue in that idea like, okay, so all these letters make up a word and these words make up sentences and these sentences make up stories, and kind of be like, okay, so let's backtrack. How are you feeling right now? What's going on in you? Like you're trying to express this huge concept and you're so overwhelmed you can't express it. So let's backtrack a little bit and be like, okay, what are the very bare basics that you're trying to communicate? So this is called Vowels and Consonants, and it's one of the tools that I use as I lead people, whether it's in my family or in the areas that I lead to help people communicate better. And I use it myself. The other one is this one. It's called the Law of Exposure. Again, probably backwards for you, not backwards for me. But the Law of Exposure comes from the idea of boundaries by Thomas Cloud. There's a book called by Dr. Henry and John Thomas Townsend. Maybe that's it. Okay, so anyways, but he has these 10 laws of boundaries, and one of them is called the Law of Exposure. The Law of Exposure is basically looking at your life and being like, wait a minute, I can't expect people to respect this boundary because I've never communicated it. I find that I do this all the time. I'll be like in the midst of a conversation and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I didn't actually tell them that I expected this. well, no wonder that things are going crazy because, I mean, like they don't know the rules. I didn't lay it down. Or maybe it's not rules, but maybe it's just the way that we're engaging and how to do that in a way that's well. And, or maybe it's, again, expressing our feelings and what's going on for us recovering people pleasers. This is kind of a huge thing, is to be like, oh, I actually have to expose what's going on inside of me. I have to tell them what's happening. And this is kind of hard to do sometimes without like forcing your voice upon them. Whoever's in the relationship with you. But there is this truth that we have to actually, we can't expect people to know what we're thinking. And a lot of times this comes out as, you know, passive aggressive behavior, or where we're saying snide remarks. I'm experiencing this a lot right now with my preteen daughter, who's constantly like saying these things because she has stuff. She has a voice and she knows she shouldn't be silent, but she's trying to figure out how to get it out of her in a way that's healthy. And that's a good thing, but it's kind of trying to teach her how to do that well now. But if she doesn't learn the law of exposure, you know, it's going to be a problem, because otherwise she's just going to revert to passive aggressive communication. And that's why we go back to the vowels and consonants of the bare basics, and being like, okay, I know that I need to say what I'm saying so I can clearly like differentiate between this area and this area, and what's I'm struggling with and what you're struggling with, and what's my responsibility and what's your responsibility. But to do that, lots of times we have to start with these bare basics. So this is my communication leadership hack of the day. This week I'll probably do a few more of these. What I'm going to try to do is kind of jump around between the things that we talk about here on Average Advocate. This month there's a lot of stuff going on with kindness. I also have a weekly challenge, if you didn't know, that talks about like how to live more justly in your life, especially when you're training up your kids in that way. And then, you know, I do leadership stuff, and also especially what to do next, to do like to discover what your next steps are for your purpose and the direction that you're going in life. If you're not sure what that is, I have a few tools that I give away for free at Average Advocate. The first one I encourage people to start with is called your Purpose Roadmap. It helps you kind of really work through what a story worth living looks like for you, and then from there I coach you through life mapping if you're interested in that. That's also a free workbook, although I do coaching with that also, because most people don't do it without coaching, and it's worth it, because your life, living that balanced life and trying to figure out who you are and the best way for you to make a difference in the world where you're at and where you're going is just essential, because our lives are so short and we don't want to waste them away. And we also don't want to waste our influence away, whether it's with our family or in our organization or with our kids or just in our school or wherever we're at workplace. And so that's why really being proactive about figuring out whether you're using your vowels and consonants and whether you are exposing the law of exposure and boundaries. You've got to communicate it, because whatever's going on is going on anyways. And if you don't communicate it, then people aren't going to know how to join with you and work with you, and you're not going to know how to work with them and join with them unless you're telling them what your expectations are and listening to theirs. All right, well, that's it. I'm Elisa. Bye.